Emerson Waite was born on November 29, 1816. In his youth, he was expected to take up a legal career. He attended Bacon Academy and he graduated from Yale in 1837. In the following year, he moved to Maumee City, Ohio, where he started to practice in the office of Samuel M. Young. In 1848, Waite went to Toledo and started a partnership with his younger brother Richard. They started a successful legal business that was largely devoted to real estate, commercial, and corporate transactions. Before Waite was in the Supreme Court, he shortly served on the Toledo City Council. This happened in 1851. He was also a member of the state legislature for 1 year from 1849 to 1850. Waite had run for Congress in 1846 and 1862, but was unsuccessful both times. In 1863, Waite could have joined the Supreme Court of Ohio, but he had refused. In 1871, Waite was appointed by President Ulysses S. Grant to serve as a U.S. counsel to the International Commission. Evidence suggests that Waite had served for 3,470 Supreme Court cases and is credited with getting his brethren to reach verdicts and write their opinions. He also had great work habits, and about a third of those opinions were drafted by him. In 1885, Waite had a breakdown, but he still refused to retire. He continued to draft opinions and continued to lead the court until his death. Waite had served as Chief Justice for 14 years until he died in Washington, D.C. on March 23, 1888, when he was 71.
Dred Scott was a man of pure African descent, born a slave in Southampton, Virginia, around the year 1800. He moved twice with his master to Huntsville, Alabama, and later to St. Louis, Missouri. Scott was purchased by an army surgeon named John Emerson after his previous owner, Peter Blow, had died in 1831. Emerson moved to Illinois, taking Dred Scott with him, but due to the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, Illinois was a free state as it had entered the Union in 1819. Scott was later taken by his owner to the Wisconsin Territory, where he married Harriet Robinson, who was also a slave, and they had children there. John Emerson had died, leaving the ownership to his wife, Eliza Irene Sanford. After living in free territory for many years, Eliza brought him and his family back to Missouri and later Louisiana. Upon their return, Scott decided to sue Eliza Emerson for his freedom, as he was legally considered a free man above the Northwest Ordinance, which required his emancipation. Taking place at the old St. Louis Country Courthouse, the initial Missouri State Court case began on April 6th of 1846. It was called Scott versus Emerson, as Eliza was left with the ownership of Dred Scott and his family. She eventually passed the case over to her brother, John Sanford. Dred Scott was declared free by the state court in 1850, but Sanford appealed the case to the Missouri Supreme Court, where they overturned the case, denying freedom to Scott. Roger B. Taney, Chief Justice on the Supreme Court at the time, made the argument that under Article 3 of the Constitution, Dred Scott was not a citizen and could never become a citizen because he was of African American descent, and therefore he did not even have the right to sue in the courts. This decision was voted on by a 7-2 majority rule and was finalized on March 6 of 1857. The Supreme Court had decided that it was unconstitutional to prohibit slavery, as slaves were considered property and not people, therefore suggesting that the Missouri Compromise was also unconstitutional. The Dred Scott decision came out 2 days after President James Buchanan was sworn in. Slave owners were convinced that the laws against slavery would be eventually lifted with the new president in office, and that it would be spread in the North, but the decision only gave abolitionists more initiative to fight the slavery. As slavery was becoming a big issue between the North and South, this case was one of the final straws that led to the Civil War, which would follow in 1861. Northern abolitionists purchased Dred Scott and his family's freedom after the ruling.